Hey, it's me, Michelle. I have a great story here from the group. It's from Judy Purkerson, and she is a member of our Sweet Home Oregon Sasquatch research group. She says, I was raised in the mountains of the Oregon coast until I was 10. My siblings, cousins, and I spent most hours of the day playing in the woods. In all that time, we never saw anything unusual or frightening. We encountered deer, bears, wolves, yes, wolves, cougars, and all of the smaller animals. It wasn't until we left the mountains that they entered our lives. My uncle and his family lived up by White Salmon, Washington, and we were up visiting. My uncle drove log truck for a living. One evening, he came in from work, his face white and his hands shaking. To get to their place, you had to drive down road carved out of a red clay hillside. It was about 20 feet across. He was driving slowly, as it was pitch dark. A noise to his left caught his attention, just in time to catch a huge leg and foot stepping onto the cab of his truck and onto the opposite bank. It was evident that something had happened to shake him up. He and my dad got a tall ladder and climbed up to see what they could see. My uncle had parked under a big light, so it was easy to see the huge foot-shaped dent in the top of the cab. There were no big rocks on the hillsides that could account for the dent, just soft red clay. Over the years, there have been other things that have happened, but that would make this very long. My husband and I now live in the lap of Willamette Valley between Albany and Sweet Home. We are hunters. 3 years ago, we were hunting up Dick Creek. We were in an area that had been recently logged. The brush piles were still smoking. I chose to scout the area and was about 3/4 of the way around the cut when I noticed it was really quiet with no wind. Suddenly, I heard a very distinct wood knock. I continued on walking, watching the smoke rising straight up, so it couldn't have been wind that knocked a branch down. I got to the truck and told him, my husband, let's go, there's nothing here. We continued to hunt. When we got home, I told him about the wood knock, and he asked why I hadn't told him, and I told him that I needed to process it. Fast forward to last year's hunting season. We were up around Marks Ridge and finally found a place we could pull off and walk in. The trail forked shortly after we got past the gate. We opted to take the right fork as it was flatter and were retired. The trees overhead, were bare of leaves, so we had plenty of light. I was watching the ground for tracks and scat, and there was plenty of both. Suddenly, in front of us, on the ground, was a large rectangular patch of grass that looked like it had been scorched. It didn't look burnt, just scorched. I've seen that once before when we were gathering greens to make wreaths with above McDowell Creek. I later learned that it was the area that the local witches' coven held their ceremonies. We left quickly. This patch gave me the same uncomfortable feeling, but we continued forward. A few steps forward toward the trail curved to the right. Evergreens overtook the deciduous trees, and it looked exactly like something that had taken the branches and bent them to form a tunnel at least 10 feet tall. My husband looked at me questioning. My gifting is discernment, so I feel and see things others don't, and my husband and I have learned to pay attention to it. I can tell you, my spidey senses were screaming. It was then that I heard the voice in my head. Now I know what the Holy Spirit sounds like because we speak often. This was not that voice. This voice was much deeper. It told me, you can't go in there. I told my husband and we left. I wasn't afraid. I rarely feel fear, but I was rattled. We opted to leave and on the way home decided to come back the next day and follow the left fork. In the middle of the night, I was woken up by the same voice. It spoke so loudly that I was sure my husband had heard it. It said, "You're not supposed to go." So when the alarm went off at 4 a.m. and he got up, I asked what he was doing. He said, "Going hunting." I told him about the voice and what it said and went back to bed. I'm firmly convinced that there was something very evil in that tunnel, and I was being warned by a friendly Squatch. Last week, we went over the mountain, and when we reached the area below where it happened, I closed my eyes and I reached out to the voice. I told it thank you for watching over us and preventing us from getting into harm's way. Suddenly, a feeling that felt like a huge warm hug washed over me. We will go back and take pictures. We're just waiting to get a gap in our busy lives that allow us to do so. I used to believe that these were North American great apes, but not anymore. Maybe someday I'll be blessed to meet him in person. Call me crazy, but I think that would be incredible. God bless you all. Remember, creation is so much more diverse than we know, and we share our force with others, both good and bad. Treat them with honesty and respect. Anything else comes with consequences. Judy P. Judy, I want to thank you for this story. The first time I read it, I loved it. And every time I read it, I love it even more. So I really want to thank you and thank the listeners, and like it and subscribe. Thanks.